Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to a new edition of Before the Punchline Comedy Podcast. We're in the year 2021. We're back from a holiday break. This is the brand new episode of the new year. And who's better to join me in the new year episode than a good friend of mine, a guy who was one of the first people I think I ever saw when I started doing comedy in English in Moscow. One of the originals. I think you were one of the originals.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, and all-around party man.
Well, I mean,
It's
not exactly an unearned reputation. Yes, as a party guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but still. So, nonetheless, Adrian Niro, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Kirill. This is awesome. This is the first comedy podcast that I've been on since the good old Capital FM days.
Oh yeah, those. We're gonna touch on that.
We'll touch it. Yeah,
well.
Sure.
Oh man, I'll start, I think, with the most typical question that I ask foreigners who come and sit down with me here. So you were born and raised in Canada.
Correct.
Then you came to Moscow. Then you left for some time, and then you came back. So my question is, why Moscow, and how did you end up here?
Yeah, sure. I'm very used to answering this question. By the way, there was Belgium in between all that. But anyway, so I finished my degree in Belgium, and basically I wasn't really ready to go back to Canada right away. Found a gig in Moscow. 3 months. I figured, if it sucks, it's only 3 months, But 3 months was long enough for me to find Ivan Yavits, Nikolai, and the brand new English stand-up scene, which was enough for me to say, you know what, I think I can do this Moscow thing for a little longer.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah. So we talked about with Nikolai even on the previous episodes, about how this entire movement of English comedy started, which is basically, as I understand, was organized by Ivan mostly. He got everyone together and everything together.
Yeah.
How did you find out about English comedy in Moscow?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty much ready to leave Moscow, and I always wanted to I just decided, I'm going to look up, there's got to be something. This city's huge, there's got to be something. And just by really just luck, because Ivan had just started, Ivan was only about, maybe 1 or 2 months in with the stand-up. So I contacted him, and, that was basically how it all stared, and yeah.
Stand-up is very huge in Canada. I think that, we once talked about it, and you told me that every single comedian who does paid gigs in Canada is officially registered. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they have, I don't know whether entrepreneurs or self-employed or something like this. And you gave me some incredible number. I think was several thousand officially registered comedians.
It's insane. It's insane, and it's getting bigger all the time. That was the biggest shock when I went back, and I did comedy, in the greater Toronto area for 18 months, and I was just shocked at how many successful, you'd say, by comparison to me anyway. At the time, I was pretty much just a glorified open micer. How many successful comedians there are there, how many talented comedians there are there. And also what really, really racked my brain was how young some of them are. Some of them are still in high school.
Wow.
It's insane. Yeah.
Imagine at what age the depression hits those people.
These ones. Well, these ones are still. They're all bright-eyed, starry-eyed. They think they're going to be famous, and who knows? Maybe they will be. I mean, the only other comedian I know who started when they were 14 is Dave Chappelle. So
yeah. Well, I think that Bo Burnham also started very young.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he pretty much he did everything by the time he was 25,
and he left. So.
Yeah. Because what else is there's what do they say? And Caesar wept when there were no more kingdoms left to conquer. That's him. Yeah.
And I'm where the hell is he? MIA. I haven't heard anything from him for
he's probably in a Shaolin temple or something. As a Buddhist monk now.
One of the most introverted comedians I've ever seen in my life.
True.
The only other one was, I confuse them all the time. Who was it Richard Herring who would always look down? So he had some sort of uh, mental disorder or something like that, and
Yeah.
he would never look into people's eyes.
It was a mental disorder, or that just sounds like he's just really shy?
Or something. No, I
but
think
there was
there was
actually-
something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. Was it Richard Herring? I think it was Richard Herring. Yeah, but nonetheless. Yeah. So, how did you even? Why did you even decide to get into stand up?
Right. That's, yeah. I mean, my background, well, originally I thought I was going to be a professional athlete, and that just fell on its face. So from my 20s onwards, I got into theater and acting. And in Belgium, it was like pretty much like improv theater, more or less. And it was pretty bombastic and off the cuff. And I was sort of like the executive producer. So that meant that I allotted myself a stand-up set before the show, which was not everybody agreed with, but I was the boss, so I could do whatever I wanted. Because I've always been a fan of comedy, since I was, at least 14, I guess. In those days, it was like watching Dave Chappelle on HBO. Like, it wasn't like everything at your fingertips on Netflix as it is today. So I've always been a fan of stand-up comedy, and I just figured, I'd left Belgium, I'd left all that theater stuff behind. So and I always wanted to be a comedian anyway, before more than a theater nerd. So I figured that was the next step, and as I said, just the stars aligned, and it turned out Ivan Yavitz had just launched, English stand-up in the city. So. Cool.
Decided to jump in, yeah.
Jumped in. I didn't actually, now that I'm remembering it, because it was about 6 years ago, I didn't actually jump in right away. I mean, I was in contact with him, and then just some other things were going on. And then in the meantime, Nick joined, and Nick's kind of like got a more of a professional experience. So so Ivan started, as far as I understand, Ivan started it, and then Nick sort of like was the rocket fuel that that kind of got it taken.
Yeah, because I only found out about this when I actually talked to him. Yeah, because I didn't know that he used to be like a working comedian back in Finland.
Yeah.
That was a shock to me.
Yeah.
But that was a very interesting thing at the time. So how can I put this question? In my opinion, I talked about this before. The deciding time span when a person decides whether they would continue to stand up or not is the first month.
Right. Yeah.
Because you go there, you do the shows, and you realize whether you're good or bad, whether you have future or not.
Sure.
Yeah, failures and so on and so forth. What was that process like for you? Because you, at the end, you stuck in comedy and stand-up
6 years
for like
later.
6 years. Yeah, you're still doing that. So, what was your thought process at the time when you just started?
Yeah, well, so I had what was it, like 10 years of experience in performing arts before that, so it wasn't like totally new for me to stand in front of a group of people and speak. So my first set went quite well. Second set went quite well. I had a hook right away, which is a common hook for a foreigner. Like, I'm a foreigner in Moscow. You people are crazy. That sort of thing. So I enjoyed a fair bit of success in the beginning. And for that reason, that's encouraging, of course, as opposed to if you're starting out and you're just eating shit night in and night out. I don't imagine that after a while, that's not such an enjoyable process unless you're a total masochist,
Oh, yeah.
I can only imagine, well, there's some people, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but there are some people who, they keep getting back up on stage regardless of the outcome. So, hey, my hat is off to them, actually.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do that. Like, because I've told this story so many times on the podcast before. Yeah, that the first 3 times I did the shows, I first did it in Russian. English came later. Yeah,
right.
First did it in Russian. I bombed like so hard. Like, even the host roasted me in the middle of my set
really?
for a bad
Oh, that's
joke.
Harsh.
Yeah, that practically destroyed me. But I was like, fuck it. Yeah,
that's mean.
I'm still here. Yeah, it's mean, but you know what? It's a very nice test to you, because when not only do you bomb on stage, but then like comedians roast you, and the host especially roasts you for like having a bad set, making fun of you in front of everyone. You get so angry, so humiliated, yeah. And if you decide to continue, I think you're gonna stuck.
Actually, I was just thinking there. It's kind of like a litmus test to see, like, do you have the balls, so to speak, to continue? Like. It's brutal. It can be brutal. So if you really want to do it and you go up there, you eat shit and the host roasts you afterwards. And if you still want to do it afterwards, then I'd say you're pretty committed,
And besides like the people who come to the shows, watch and listen to the comedians, I think that you also have this all the time when people come to you after the show and they're like, oh my God, I have no idea how you're doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so scared of even like talk to the crowd of like 10 people, and you're doing this in front of 15, 30, 60, 100 people, and you feel pretty comfortable.
Right.
That's very tough to a lot of people. What was it like for you to get on stage for the first time in front of people? Because you mentioned that you had like theater experience before. So you were not new to performing in front of the people, but was a different genre, so to speak. Because,
absolutely.
In theater, you're acting. You're acting, and you don't necessarily need to make people laugh. Here, it's different. The main goal is to make people laugh.
Right.
So how was that for you?
Well, so the theater that we were doing, especially in Belgium, there was sort of an implicit expectation that it was going to be funny. And there was sort of the same beat as there is doing stand-up comedy, as in like, you really got to be in the moment. You got to be prepared to improvise. If something's funny, you got to be prepared to sort of squeeze it out as long as possible to get as many laughs as possible. And as I mentioned before, when I was sort of, executive producer and I could just gift myself 10 minutes on stage, which, usually ended up being 20 minutes, to be honest, to do stand up. And those were the worst ones because the audience didn't know what stand-up comedy was. And they're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Like we came here to see a theater performance. So that's when I went through my growing pains. So when I did my first set in Moscow, I didn't really feel like it was my first set. I felt pretty seasoned. I had already gone up on stage. I had already taken my growing pains. So my first set here, I was pretty comfortable. It didn't really feel, it was my first, let's say, official comedy set, but it didn't really feel like my first comedy set because of the experience I had before. So,
when I first saw you, and even later, like I could say that this still hasn't changed. Whether you have a good show or a bad show, good set or bad set, there is one thing that stands out to me about you is your stage presence, because I rarely see people with so much confidence, because I freak out. When something goes wrong, I can freak out, and it's visible.
Right.
You can tell that about a lot of people, even those who had been doing this for like 5 years, 6 years, You remain pretty comfortable and calm, confident on stage. Now, is that something you got from theater, or is that something that you just naturally raised in yourself?
You know what? I people tell me this all the time, and I get shocked because the thing is that maybe I look confident, but I don't always feel confident. I really don't. Like when people get to know me and they see what an anxious fucker I am, they're like, I thought you were this like super calm, super cool guy all the time. And I'm like, no, man. And when I'm on stage and I'm bombing, let's say, it's kind of just a don't let them see you sweat type deal. Because trust me, I'm perspiring. I smell like shit because I'm sweating my tits off. It's just like the next person. It's just maybe I'm just I'd like to think I'm a good actor. I can act like nothing's going wrong, but inside I'm melting just like the next guy or girl. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So. I want to talk about the process of improvement in comedy, because obviously when you doing this for like 5-6 years, there bound to be like certain progress, and it's visible when you go back and you watch if you have the recordings of your older sets, and compare them to what you're doing right now. What was that process for you, and in particular in terms of like the jokes that you write and you perform.
Right.
Yeah. So do you notice this difference from like back 5 years ago
Right.
till this moment?
Yeah. Yeah, I tried. Well, you know what? It's not a linear progress. Whereas in like, you start here and then, as time goes on, you're getting better and better. I think, in some ways, like when I started, I was better, and then I went through like a dip, and I think I've in the last year and a half, I've really actually kind of dipped because I strayed a little bit from what I felt worked for me in the beginning, which is to sort of just be present, be in the moment, be ready to improvise, be ready to deal with whatever comes at me, but with the mindset that I need to improve. I need to be more disciplined. I need to be more methodical. I need to write more. I need to have A to B to C to D to E planned out, and by doing that. I mean, it works for some people, but I just found that it doesn't work for me, and I feel like I come off mechanical, and so just recently I've decided, you know what, I gotta abandon this over preparing, which doesn't seem to work for me, and just sort of go back to, as we were saying just before we went on air. Just have the first 15 seconds or 20 seconds. That's the only thing planned. The rest is just a general idea, and we'll just see how it goes. Just trust the process, and that's usually how it works. So the ironic thing about your question is like, yeah, you would think that it should be like I started down here and then I got better as time went on. I kept on getting better and better and better. I don't know who else can relate to this, but in my particular case, I don't think it was a straight line. I think it was like up, dip, and
Like a roller coaster.
Yeah, totally. It's totally like a roller coaster. Yeah, but I mean, they say it takes 10 years for a comedian to really hit their learning curve. That's a long time for an art form, And if that's the case, I still got 4 more years.
Yeah, then get invitation to perform at night show. Yeah,
right.
Night show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. You have performed not only in Russia but back in Canada, yeah,
and Belgium and the
Belgium,
Netherlands and Finland, Sweden, yeah.
The crowds, the audience that comes to the shows.
Right.
I want to touch this subject, because I talk to my guests all the time about, hey, how different is Russian crowd from from wherever you come from, and so on and so forth. You have a lot of places to compare Russian audience to, yeah.
Yep.
So in compared to like Belgium, Canada, Finland, like what is Russian audience?
Right. It's so counterintuitive to probably what most people think. I remember when I went back to Canada, my uncle's like, you were doing comedy in Moscow. That sounds like something you would do on a dare. Because there's this idea that, Russian crowds must be like, cutthroat and ruthless. But actually, I think the opposite is true. They're really polite. They're the only group of people that applaud if you're sucking. Like if some, especially at Russian stand-up, I've noticed this. Like if a comedian is kind of like sucking or struggling, they'll applaud as support. And I've never seen that before. But also like Canadian crowds, American crowds are kind of so I did a little bit in Michigan State, upstate New York. They're kind of a little bit more jaded. It's kind of a little bit more like, okay, impress me. And I get it because there's, 300,000 comedians that they've seen. So it's like, all right, what makes you special? I'm obviously, there's sort of an unearned privilege of performing here as a foreigner, which is, it's the foreign element, like, the exotic. I'm just exotic just because of what my passport says. So it's like an automatic hook, which is nice. I'm not gonna lie. Sweden and Finland, they're not as impressed because it's Europe, Western Europe, and they've got tons of foreigners. They're not, they're used to having foreigners visit their country, but it's just like everywhere in Moscow. It's like, why, from abroad. Oh, wow. Oh, what brings you here? What do you think about the place? That's the one thing. That I'll never run out of material to talk about oh, what do I think about Moscow? Because Russian crowds love that, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree with what you said about Russian crowds because, like 5 years ago, I remember there was no culture at all with Russian crowds because I started back then,
Right.
and with Russian stand-up,
Right.
there would be a lot of drunks. Who would just heckle all the time, and the audience, I didn't feel like they would respect you. Yeah, right now it's different. We have plenty of stand-up clubs and people who come there to the shows. Here's the kicker: they realize that they come to a comedy show. They want you to make them laugh. Yeah,
Right.
it's not like they're demanding you to make them
Right.
laugh, but they want you to.
Right.
They
No,
want you to be funny, and that's why they always support you, no matter what. And they
Right.
would like sit there, listen to you very carefully, attentively. Even if you fail, they would support you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely what I like about crowds. But with English stand-up, it's different. I think that because we have foreigners who come here as well, yeah, and apart from wanting to interact with comedians, they have this thing that impress me. I kind of feel that
definitely.
from time to time.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's, that's the hard, whenever say for example, at Steal the Show or Jim and Jack's, wherever we happen to be, and there are foreigners in the crowd, especially from like Anglo-speaking countries, the UK, Canada, United States, Australia, whatever, I feel a little bit more unnerved because it's like, shit, I really got to bring my A game if I'm going to win them over, you know? Yeah.
You recently you've started doing some Russian shows as well.
Yes,
I know that.
right.
I know that for a fact. And we'll say honestly, yeah, you are not particularly good in Russian. Yeah, with the language, I mean.
No.
So how does that work out for you?
Well, the reason, it was Abed who actually suggested to me because, like my Russian for being here so long is embarrassingly low. And I really want to fix that. So Abed actually was the one to suggest, like, just prepare 3 minutes, memorize it, start doing Russian stand-up. So I really am doing Russian stand-up to improve my Russian, like that's really what that's the honest truth, to be honest. So, but like I found a way to make it work in as much as like, okay, I'm going to put on the acting hat again. And yes, I'm still reading it. I still haven't memorized it, but I'm gonna, it's like arrogant foreigner, like, yeah, I suck at Russian, but who cares? Like I'm doing this for you people. I don't even want to be here. Like it's this kind of niche persona that I'm putting on to get the cheap laughs. But at the end of the day, like, I'm obviously not going to be on TNT anytime soon. And I understand that. That's not really the point, at least not yet. Maybe someday, 3-4 years down the line after some serious practice. But for now, it's actually really just a way to engage with the language and to just have, any stage time is good. No matter what language you're speaking,
Are you nervous when you get there, do this in Russian? Yeah.
Opposite. I'm not nervous at all because I know, well, first of all, I get to read and it's just, I'm just playing a character. I'm just playing a one-dimensional character. I'm more nervous doing English because in English, like people have higher expectations. I have higher expectations, but when I'm doing Russian and just like, I really am playing the character. Like, I don't care how this sounds. I do care, but like, I don't care how this sounds, blah, 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 blah. All right. Okay. Yeah. You got it. All right. Good. Next, that sort of deal. Yeah.
As a way to comfort you, because performing in different language other than your native mother language, it's very difficult and it can be very stressful to people. Do you have this thing in your head that, oh, okay, it's not my native language. They don't expect me to be good in this. Like, do you have this idea that comforts you sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I've come to know, I've done it. I think, I'm trying to think, maybe 5 or 6 times I've done Russian, exact same routine. And after the first time I realized that, I've kind of already won before I even speak a word because it's like, oh, it's a Canadian and he's going to speak our language. I've already got them eating out of my hands, and I didn't even really do anything. So after the first one, I'm like, okay, this is easy.
Yeah. I ask you this because it works the same for me, because I mostly do English stand-up. I've done Russian shows before, yeah, and this is one of my goals for this year. I want to do more Russian stand-up. But for me, one of the things that comforts me all the time when I get on stage is that, hey, I'm Russian. They introduce me as Russian.
Right.
And so I have a certain expectation that my language will not be good, my pronunciation will not be good. And this is actually what shocks and surprises a lot of people, because
Right.
when I get on stage after, like, let's say 2 or 3 Russian comedians who are just trying to
Sure.
Google translate their
Yeah,
jokes or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
this, yeah, and I get on stage and I open my mouth and they're like, is he like really? Okay,
Right.
okay, let's listen to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. Russian for me personally, stand up on the other hand, is so much more stressful. It may sound a little bit shocking. I don't know. Yeah. But I sound very mechanical in Russian, simply for one simple reason. And this is like very strange, but for 4.5 years that I've been doing English stand-up, I write my jokes in English.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't write them in Russian.
Right.
Even the thought process is in English.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And then when I sit down and I'm trying to translate them into Russian, I'm reading what I've just translated. I'm like, this doesn't sound natural at all.
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah.
This is not it. And a
Right.
couple of times there, when I would try to improvise during my Russian sets, yeah, you could see that, oh, he's rolling his eyes at the back of his head. He's translating it at the moment.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Sure. Well, it's. I was listening to when Nick was on, and he was saying something about, while English words are shorter. Like the art of stand-up comedy is almost made for English. I mean, that's where it started, in America and in the clubs. So it's kind of more like it's just more of a natural. Its language is more naturally English, I would assume. And by the
Probably.
way, I did do by the way an open mic when I was in Brussels in French. And that was also difficult because, again, it's just like, it just doesn't seem, and I'm more proficient in French than I am in Russian. So it just doesn't seem like it's the right language for what I'm trying to do. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
But you said you feel mechanical when you're doing Russian.
I feel mechanical, yeah, because I'll be honest with you, I feel much more comfortable speaking in English than Russian. And mostly due to my profession, I think, because I'm an English teacher.
Yeah.
And most of the time, like, I counted it actually, the last 6 months, every single day, I speak English more than I do Russian.
Right. Yeah.
Because, because of the pandemic, especially now that I try to stay at home, and I go only out to the shows. And so I'm like, I'm having lessons, like 2 or 3 lessons per day. I speak English.
Yeah.
I go to the shows. I speak English because all the guys there speak English.
Yeah.
I perform. I speak English. Yeah. I even think in English.
Right.
Like,
I
for
was
me,
just going to ask you. Yeah. I was just going to ask you what language you think in.
For me, it's much more comfortable doing that, And the only time that I speak Russian is when I'm on the phone with my mom, when I explain some grammar rules in English to my students, or when I talk to my wife.
Right.
And even this is the thing. This is like, how do they call it in Russian? Professional deformation or something like this. It's like when I talk to my wife, sometimes I forget the word in Russian, but I remember it in English.
Sure, yeah. Yeah,
and
it
I
can happen,
spill out, because my wife is also fluent in English,
Right.
and she understands it, and she laughs about it all the time as well. Like, you don't know how to say it in Russian, you know how to say it in English.
What language do you dream in?
Russian.
Russian.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. My thought process is usually in English. I don't know why. Probably because I like
native
the
language. Like your deep subconscious is still Russian.
Yeah. Of
first
course,
language,
of course. And I noticed that my Russian downgraded. Actually,
Sure,
dipped. I realized that because I noticed that when I speak in longer sentences, and I'm like, I make so many pauses. Like, this is not good.
Right.
This is my native language.
Yeah.
I have to I have to like improve it.
Yeah.
I just think about me as a Russian. I'm like, I have to improve my Russian.
But you know what? It's actually the same with me in English. Because I've lived in total. I've lived abroad for 12 years in non-native English speaking countries, and I realized that my English is actually as well, like it's decreased. And I notice this whenever I'm speaking with native speakers. I start to feel a little bit of anxiety. I'm like, shit, I don't have any vocabulary, you know, like, yeah, you know, especially people from the UK, because, you know, they're so linguistically savvy. And I'm just like, I'm sounding like I'm like, shit, you know, bring your A game. Come on now. And then as soon as you do that, you're fucked, because it's like, oh, I can't. I'm just talking like, yes, I like it too, you know, like speaking in full sentences, you know.
I remember I was once talking to a couple of foreigners, and in the middle of the conversation, one of them said something to the extent of like, "Oh, I felt so flabbergasted." And then the other guy turns to him and was like, "What the fuck does flabbergasted mean?"
Yeah.
So the native speaker didn't even know what the word means.
It happens all the time, and there are actually oftentimes, like, you know, people, you know, Russians who are highly proficient, such as yourself. You guys oftentimes know words that we don't know, or you know grammar rules that we don't know. And on the one hand, it's embarrassing, but on the other hand, fuck it.
But since we're on the subject, I just want to say that I understand where it comes from for two reasons. Number one is that when most of Russian people, they don't learn the language to speak it. They learn the language to go abroad and to be able to communicate with people for some basic needs, like to buy something in the shop or something like that. The other half, they're really like nerds, you know, they dive into this. But the problem is that they do everything by the textbook. And one of the first things that I tell my students when they come to me, like, hey, I need to improve my speaking skills. I go like, okay, so the first thing you need to realize is that spoken English and textbook English are two different things.
Absolutely.
Barely anybody speaks English by the textbook in terms of native speakers.
Yeah.
I think I've never met a person, a native speaker, who would speak textbook English all the way. There's always something like that. You know, like, for example, there is like a rule in English grammar that there can't be two negations in one sentence.
Right.
Like you can't,
double negative.
You can't say something like, there ain't anybody, nobody, who can do this, or something like that. But
unless you're from Texas.
Unless you're from Texas, or Louisiana. I think.
I ain't no ways tired.
Yeah, but that's what happens all the time. You know, they always break the rules, and that's okay, because the same thing happens in Russian. And when people are like, when my students ask me like, but how can they break the grammar rules? I'm like, how can you break grammar rules in Russian?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's a huge difference between the language, the way it's written in books. I've noticed that I come in contact a lot with older Russians who came up in the Soviet, you know, who were educated in the Soviet era. And their English sounds so awkward, because you can see it's like clearly like they just memorized grammar rules, and they memorized these sentences that nobody says anymore. It's so awkward. It's weird. It's talking to a robot, really.
I'll tell you even more. There is those Soviet teachers. There are some systematic mistakes that they kept making when they were teaching kids, like me, for example. But I was lucky enough to correct this mistake. So here's the mistake. One of those many mistakes, modal verbs, plenty of them in English language. And one of them is should, modal verb should, which in reality, what it means is that basically, like, you're recommending something. When you say, oh, you should eat more vegetables, you're basically telling the person, hey, you'd better eat more vegetables. You know, like a piece of advice to you. And they kept telling us, and I remember that because I had 3 different English teachers at school, which told us that the verb should means obligation. That it's like the synonym to the verb must. Yeah. And I'm like,
not quite.
Yeah, not quite. And 80% of my students have the same mistake in their heads, because back in the day when they studied at school, their teachers told them exactly the same thing.
Right.
And I'm like, so this is it. This is one mistake that was made by one person who thought that he was a smart ass, and that it like spread around all the other teachers. Yeah. Which, by the way, sometimes I get pissed at English because there are some things in the language I don't see any point in it. For example, I don't understand why the word advice is uncountable.
Yeah, there's a couple like that, like sheep. It's always sheep. It's never sheeps.
Yeah. What stops you from saying advices? It sounds natural.
It seems natural. Yeah. I mean, that's some asshole who had an esteemed position in society, and he just decided, I'm not going to put an S at that. Fuck that. And then everybody else is like, well, if so and so's not doing it, I better not do it either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, for example, Spanish spoken in Spain, like they kind of have a lisp because the king had a lisp. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
funny how language evolves.
Yeah, we're not even
interesting,
and we're not even going into the topic that there is like British English and American English.
Right? Yeah.
Like I have seen twice how like an American and a Brit would talk to each other, and when they eventually they start talking about the language when they get drunk, and Brits would always use this card. At some point they say something to the extent of like, we gave you our language and you butchered it. Yeah, that's, I think,
right.
one of the most embarrassing moments for the Americans. But at the same time, I prefer American accent to British accent.
It's I've noticed that most foreigners do. They say it's easier to understand the American. Yeah, and I can understand that. By the way, there's a lot of different British English accents, and dialects.
Yeah,
much more than there are in America. America's pretty standard across.
Yeah,
I mean, for the most part.
Because I noticed that a lot when you meet, for example, a native London citizen, they would usually have very good accent, no problem understanding them. But if it's someone from the outskirts of London, for example,
the
Cockneys, my God, they sound sometimes even worse than Scotsmen. No disrespect to you, Scottish people, but you know what your problem is,
right?
Yeah, me father told me once. I'm like, come on.
Oh, sure, yeah. No, that's the thing. I mean, there are some English, let's say UK in general, Scotland being one of them, dialects that I need subtitles if I'm watching it. Like Trainspotting, it's a Scottish movie. I need subtitles, man. I don't understand a word.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the most like stereotypical British accent, which I could understand, is probably where did I hear that? Doctor Who. Yeah.
Doctor Who.
All the actors who played the Doctor, whether it was Christopher Eccleston, whether it was Matt Smith or David Tennant, they all have this British accent. Yeah. But for some reason, I could understand every single thing that they would say. Right. Like to my surprise.
Right. Yeah, there's some of them who make an effort to speak properly, understandably, Right.
Especially when they go international.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. There are some places where, the Geordies, in the north, where it's like if they're talking to each other, we don't understand them. But they know that when they're talking to someone from anywhere else, they got to dial it down. You know?
Of course. But back to comedy.
Sure, yeah. We have a bit of a tangent on there.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
Hey, we can talk about anything we want.
Absolutely.
You know why? Because it's my show.
Shit, right.
So we can talk about everything we want. So one of the things that you've been doing a lot for the past several years is hosting. And hosting, this is what I want to do also more this year, because hosting, it's still comedy, it's still stand-up, but it requires you to have a particular set of skills. It's not the same as going on stage and doing the set, because usually you would memorize the set or something like that. You would prepare it. Yeah. Hosting, you have to improvise a lot when you warm up the crowd. So how does that work for you, and what is different for you in particular, between preparing a set and hosting a show?
Right. You're right. It's definitely hugely different. I think I'm more naturally suited to host than to do sets because I'm not comfortable, as I said before, going, like, okay, this is the plan. I'm going from A to B to C to D. So, yeah, hosting, you have to be much more in tune with the audience, how they're feeling. You got to you got to vibe with the audience, and you got to sort of adjust on the fly to how they're feeling. And your job basically is to keep their spirits up, you want them to be happy and having a good time. They're more likely to laugh that way. And and you got to be able to, you got to be not afraid to interact directly with certain members of the audience. You got to be sensitive to some people in the audience. They're really shy and they don't want to talk to you, and you don't want to pick on them. You want to try to find the superstar in the audience. The person who's gonna banter with you, and then it's sort of like, it's almost like they're the representative of the audience, like they're the elected representative. They speak on behalf of the audience, and you're speaking on behalf of the performers. So yeah, it's certainly, it's much more free form, and it's a lot harder to do material when you're hosting, because it's not really your job. So sometimes I've got my my data bank of my bits, where if something comes up in the moment, I'll be like, oh, I got a bit about that, and maybe I'll go into it. But otherwise, it's pretty much a dialogue with the audience, I would say. So yeah, it's a lot different. And actually, you said you wanted to get more into hosting. If you have the time, if it doesn't conflict with your schedule or whatever, we've got Jim and Jack's comedy up again.
Oh yeah.
And I was actually thinking that I'd like to host less because I'm doing it so much. And my actual stand-up is kind of suffering because of it. So I wanted to balance that out a bit more. So,
Yeah, I did host in.
I
Jim
remember
and
you
Jack's.
used to, like, before in the old days. Yeah.
I did host a couple of times in Jim and Jack's. By the way, I'm happy that we got that back. We got Jim and Jack's back for one reason. Not only do I have some special memories with that place, but I keep telling this all the time to people. Like, if you are performing with Still the Show all the time, that's all good. But if you really want to go through this, rough check, so to speak, if you really want to see how wild crowds can be and how difficult it is to get their attention, go to Jim and Jack, perform in Jim and Jack's.
I thank you so much. I could not have said it better. I've been thinking, when I was preparing, like thinking about that I was going to be coming on this show, this is the thing I wanted to talk about, man, really. I love performing at Steal the Show. They do such a great job of putting on a really professional show. It's really, like, what they're doing is fantastic. They're really kind of bringing it into the mainstream, really giving it stability, this, that, and the other, and it's fantastic. But comedy, club comedy for me, like that, this is where it started in the States. It started in places like Jim and Jack's. At Jim and Jack's, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty, like at Steal the Show, it's pretty tightly controlled. Everything's kind of within the wheelhouse. But at Jim and Jack's, it's the closest thing I've ever experienced to like a really authentic club experience, which is, there's an element of danger there. Like, the lunatics could run the asylum, and that's why everybody, performers and the audience, are always a little bit on edge, but that's part of the fun. We're walking the line between chaos and order. And, when Nikolai, you remember when Nikolai was hosting, he was just, he is the master host, really.
Yeah,
and
he is.
He's the guy who just, like, he's taking you into dangerous places, but, you trust him, like the audience, as an audience member, you trust him, and, you find yourself laughing at things you would never laugh at. But at the same time, there is that element of danger, and it can really go off the rails, and it has at Jim and Jack's. I had an Irish girl rush the stage like to fight me.
Holy
While I was
When was that?
Oh, that was in 2017. So that was just after what was then known as EMC left. Jim and Jax and I took over. And the one night there was it was quite a crowd, a lot of internationals, and I'm just polling the crowd, like, where's everybody from? There's one girl at the bar, she's like, Ireland. I'm like, shit, I've got material about Ireland, you know. My heritage is I got Irish grandfathers, so I have material. If she had let me finish, she would see that the joke was actually about me. But she didn't. All she heard was alcoholic, and she came charging at the stage. And I'm like, oh, and everybody's like, oh, everybody's like scared because what the hell is going on? And she came, and you know, I'm not gonna run away. And she just pushed me away, and you know, all right, lads, this fucking guy, and you know, and she's walking away, and I'm like, okay, I can't just let that go. And I'm like, thank you, you've proved that Alcoholics Anonymous is a good idea. And she comes right back up and pushes me away. But the cool thing about that is that she came back the next week and apologized.
Yeah.
So.
You know what? I'm getting jealous of you and Abed in particular, because both of you have this one crazy story when somebody wanted to punch you.
It happened 3 times to
When
me.
an audience... Oh, okay.
It happened to me 3 times.
We'll go into that, yeah, because like Abed has a story when he was performing at Stand Up Club #1 once, and there was again a drunk Russian girl who tried to rush there and punch him, but the security stopped her. You have apparently three situations.
I've got 3. Yeah, I've got 3.
So what were the other 2?
Okay, so the first one was like when back in 2014 when it started, we were performing at Cherry Cafe, which is just up Tverskaya. Worst place to do a comedy show. It's literally a cafe. There's no stage. We were performing there on Sunday nights. Everybody who was there had no idea there was going to be a comedy show. Like, it's like Sunday evening. They just want to have like a chill drink, and all of a sudden, here's these assholes going to do English stand up, you know. And but on this one particular night, there was a drunk guy at the bar, and he was just heckling everybody to a point where it's impossible to perform. So when I was up, that's when Nick decided, like, okay, we got to get this guy out of here. So he goes over and sort of just like, hey man, let's go out for a smoke, you know, soft. But the thing is that to leave the cafe, you actually have to walk behind the performer. So as he's walking behind me, he kicked me in the ass. Like he gave me a good swift kick in the ass while I had the microphone in hand, you know.
Just for fun?
Just because he's an asshole, I guess. I don't know. And so that was kind of a soft one. That was the softest one. So the other one was the one I just told you about, the Irish girl. Now the third one was a Scottish guy. And it was also in the first, like at the beginning, we were performing at the I think it was Foreman, and got this gig. Nice idea, just, you know, the wrong place. It is probably the most famous expat bar in Moscow. You know, Papa's.
Oh yeah.
Like it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's the oldest, the most well. So I walked in, and the person at the door is like, "Hi, are you with the BBC?" So these are the people who are actually there. And I'm like, this is the wrong crowd for us. You know, we were just starting. None of us were that good. So anyway, and the other thing that sucked about that was a recipe for disaster was, as we were speaking into the microphone, it was hooked up to the PA of the whole bar. So this BBC party that was going on, they were going to listen to our shitty comedy, whether they liked it or not. So Igor was there, actually, as I remember. Gleb was there, and you know, Nikolai's hosting, of course. There's like 5 or 6 people decide they want to come see our show. Everyone else is going to listen to it anyway. And by the time I went up, this guy had enough. And you know what? I don't entirely blame him. But anyway, he comes up. He's like, "You're not fucking funny." And once again, I'm like, okay, I can't. I'm not going to back away, you know. And I'm egging him on, doing disrespectful and imitations of his accent. And he was coming. And I don't remember who it was sitting in the front row, but he's like, "Adrian, careful," you know, like this is about to go south real fast. Long story short, I'm being a dick. He's being a dick. Gleb and Nick, they go to like, come on, dude, let's go take a walk. And the dude headbutted Gleb in the face. outside.
Shit.
So I didn't know about this. I'm just struggling through the rest of my set, and then I can see Nick in the corner of my eye, and he's looking really nervous, and he's just like, you know, like waiting for me to finish. And as soon as I finished, he comes onto the stage. He's like, "Thank you very much. Good night." And he's like, "Let's go. We're getting out of here."
Get the fuck out
Yeah,
of
we
here.
just get the fuck out of here. Yeah. So then we just had this weird night where we were bouncing around to weird, strange clubs. It was a weird night, but it was funny. It's funny to look back on it now.
Oh my god.
So yeah, I say you're not a comedian until you've had somebody try to fight you on stage, and I've had it 3 times. So I'm pretty proud of myself.
Probably, yeah. Well, I mean, that's like when somebody. Like when a person tries the situation when a person tries to punch you or punches you on stage can sometimes be a key to success. Just ask Jim Jeffries.
I was just going to mention that. People forget about that. He got knocked out on stage in Manchester.
Out, yeah, but that what basically kick-started his success
because he came back out, right? Like
he came back out, and that went viral,
right? Yeah.
And I think that he even used that footage at his very first special.
Right.
So he aired that footage. He played that footage of the guy who that was, I think, also that was an Irishman who kicked him.
Was it? Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
An Irishman punched an Australian
in Manchester.
It could be a beginning to
whatever. Like he should be sending that guy Christmas cards, because
yeah. He should pay him some royalties.
Some royalties, yeah, absolutely.
I got so much money from your punch, sucker.
Yeah. Oh, that's gotta piss that guy off, eh? Like he thought that he was like, gonna show Jim Jeffries a lesson, and instead he kickstarted his career. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. What was since we started talking about like darker, more embarrassing things? What was your most embarrassing or one of your most embarrassing moments on stage?
Oh, that's good. There's so many. Oh man, there's so many. Okay. Well, one, and I always forget about this. It was at the latter days of EMC when Oleg started at EMC, and Oleg invited me to a show at, remember when it was like the Prosto Cafe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a an official show, and I don't remember doing it. All I remember is waking up the next day, and I got a message from Oleg, and he's like, "Hey, just so you know, I can't pay you for that." And I was like, what? I didn't even know what he was talking about. I don't remember doing that show, but so thank God I didn't see it, because I don't think I could stomach seeing it. That's probably one. There was another one again when it was all started. One of the places we performed at was a place called Happy Hour. And this one particular night, Ivan was missing, or he was out of town, and Nick was sick. And those are the 2 best guys, right? So I think Gleb was hosting. He was doing the best he could, but the crowd was just dead, And what's worse than getting heckled is for the crowd to be completely indifferent to you.
Yeah.
That's worse than getting heckled. So and people are going like one after the other, bombing. And by the time I got up there, I just said, I think I said, like, do you guys even understand English? And there's nothing like, Ponimachi pa-angliski? All right, you know what? This is the worst crowd I've ever had. Fuck you. And dropped the microphone and walked off stage. I mean, I knew what I was doing. I just got pissed off. But of course, I felt guilty about it afterward. I was like, that was not so cool. But but I guess out of those 2, the more embarrassing would be not remembering the performance and then having Oleg being like, yeah, I can't really pay you for that.
Have you asked the guys what you did, what you talked about?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an achievement, actually.
Right.
I don't remember it, and I don't want to.
Don't want to know. Don't want to know. Yeah.
Oh, this is actually very good. You touched again on something I wanted to ask you about. Was there a moment? I mean, there probably was. Yeah, most likely there was. But apart from this moment when you flipped out, the crowd basically. Are there any other memorable moments for you when you lost your cool on stage?
That's let's see. Actually, I don't think so. I mean, I was pretty composed when the people rushed the stage to fight. I mean, on the outside I was anyway. Besides that, like you said earlier, I try to at least, show composure. So nothing really stands out actually. Besides that one time. That was the one time where I was just like, fuck you. You got to drop the microphone, walk off stage with my finger in the air, you know. I think that was the only time, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, all right. One of the other things that foreigners have to cope with when they start doing stand up in Moscow is to basically adopt their sense of humor. Adopt.
Adopt.
Fucking yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You got it.
yeah. Their sense of humor, to the circumstances of being in Russia. Yeah, because every country, every culture has different understanding of what humor is. Yeah. If we compare Russia, a Russian sense of humor to, for example, like Canadian, what they have in Canada. So, what are the differences that you've noticed?
I think, well, when I was 18 months in Canada trying slaving away, one of the things I noticed is that their sensibilities are more, what's the word, ribaldry, like blue humor, like kind of
Clean, yeah?
not clean. No, not clean. Yeah, not clean. So, all the stuff, dick masturbation,
Porn and
toilet,
stuff,
all that stuff.
My favorite material.
Yeah. And so one of the things I've noticed about Russian crowds is there are some Russian crowds who, in English anyway, I know that in Russian people do this type of humor, but in English, it seems to me more often than not, a Russian crowd that comes for an English show doesn't really want to hear that stuff, or they're less receptive to it. That's just my experience. Like when I try to go that way, at best I'll get polite laughter, at best. But from me, a Russian crowd in English wants to hear me talk about, cultural experiences and stuff like that. I've noticed. So that's one thing I would say. They get uncomfortable with things like even just I had this thing like about the police. How in Canada about rights, if the cops come up to me in Canada or the U.S. or wherever and they say like, hey, I want to see your, I'm like, am I suspected of committing a crime? Oh, okay. Well, here's my ID for you. Show them the middle finger, and then the crowd kind of is like, is he flipping me off? Like like they don't get that. So yeah, there's just little things like that, which you got to adjust to, which is fair enough.
There are a couple of things that basically can make a foreigner who does stand up in English in Russia, who does stand up in general in Russia, can make him a prisoner of some particular material on stage. Like what you mentioned,
yes,
that in your experience, the crowd, what you've noticed, they want you to talk more about cultural differences.
Absolutely.
Basically, they want you to tell them stories how a foreigner lives in Moscow, in Russia.
Yes.
How difficult is it for you to basically sometimes be a prisoner of this type of material? And how do you fight that? Because as a comedian, you don't want to be one-dimensional. You want to joke about different topics. Yeah. So how does that work for you?
That's been my existential crisis in doing comedy for the last year and a half, and that's why I said about the dip. The last time, I did the Punchline in 2019. I did 90 minutes. It was all the cultural stuff, and at the end of it, I was just like, I'm tired of doing this, like I feel like a whore, like honestly, like I feel like I'm just spoon feeding them what they want. And like, of course I appreciate the adulation and everything like that. But, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of doing this stuff. And I want to prove my salt by showing that I can do other types of material, And so after that, I made a sharp departure, and I'm like, I'm doing other stuff. I've got a notebook full of things that I want to make bits out of that have nothing to do with I'm a foreigner living in Russia. And it's been tough, I'll have people come up to me and say like, I like your, your cultural stuff better. And I don't like it when you talk about masturbation and venereal disease and all this, that, and the other. And, I'm like, well, so I do feel that the pull, like to stay in that in that wheelhouse. And as so what I decided is basically I'm not going to make a clean cut from the standard cultural stuff to now all of a sudden I'm going to show that I can do other stuff. What I'm going to do instead is, okay, I'm going to branch off. I'm going to keep the cultural stuff as a base, and I'm going to branch off and try to insert other things within that and sort of slowly branch away from that, rather than just decide, oh, I'm going to throw out all my old material and start fresh. I mean, we don't really have that luxury because we're only performing in one city in a very small, it's not like, unfortunately, we can go on the road and work on the same material to fresh crowds every night. So we don't really have the luxury to say, okay, I've done that, put it away, start fresh.
Yeah.
So that's sort of,
one of the things that I started noticing a long time ago, and which is very interesting to dig into. I think that you're one of the first people I'm going to talk to about this. It's the thing in stand-up which I like to call a foreigner card. What I understand, what I mean when I say a foreigner card, is when you use the fact that you're a foreigner to your advantage on stage. It can be cheap usage of that. Like, for example, when you just say something with an accent, something with a funny accent, and people start laughing. Right. It can be something more complicated, like particular jokes about the difference in culture and so on and so forth. How do you, and just to once again say this out loud. I don't blame for foreign comedians for doing that. Hell, if I was a foreigner, I would be using that too.
Right.
Why not? You have a tool, use it. How do you integrate this into your humor?
So that's something that I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something that you hear whispered a lot, and I'm really glad you brought that up. Because, for example, like Vasily Medvedev is hilarious to me. Because of the, it's all in his delivery, because he's the caricature of a Russian guy that, he would kill in America. He would destroy audiences in America. Absolutely. Like, I don't know why he doesn't go, because I think I know he's successful in Russian, but I think he would just absolutely destroy. So, I get it. And actually, I'm very self-conscious about it. I really am. It was fun at the beginning. And then after a while, I'm like, well, I want to show that I can do other things. I don't want to be a one-dimensional guy. But at the same time now, just kind of flipping it and playing devil's advocate and sort of looking at the other side. It is in comedy what you call like a hook, right? So you could say, for example, Sam Kinison,
of course.
So you could say like, oh, well, he wouldn't be funny if he didn't have a scream. If he didn't have that scream, right? Then he wouldn't be funny. It's like, okay, true, but he did have the scream. So he was funny. He's a legend because of that scream. And okay, that was his hook, but so what? It worked, So that, so I'm kind of coming around full circle to where it's like, yes, I have this card, as all foreigners do. And, it's sort of just given for no reason, or just for arbitrary reasons, but I'm not going to snub my nose at it. It's a hook. I'm going to use it because I can, and it gets laughs. And at the end of the day, that's what we're doing, right? Like we're here to make the audience laugh. And if the audience wants that, and that's what's going to make them laugh, then, I should, on one, it's a conflict, right? On one hand, I should give them what they want. And on the other hand, I want to grow. I want to grow. I want to grow out of it. And so that's why, like I said, in the last year and a half, I'm like, I'm ditching that shit. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just going to come up and do regular material. Whereas now I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to integrate it. I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to try to, but I'm also not going to rely on it exclusively because fuck, and like, I don't know if you know or not, when I did the show in Belgium, I did like a 90-minute set in Belgium in my old university town for 400 people. And I regret so much that I don't have it on film. I just have the one thing with me doing the selfie, with the audience chanting Russia. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's like a really like a diverse international crowd, and like that show went really fucking well. And I want to look at it not just to be like, wow, look at me killing up there, but I just want to like see how did I do that, because that's not a Russian crowd, and I can't just say Russian words with my fucked up accent, you know. So and in any case, it's a really good question. It's because it's something that has really been fucking my brain for a long time. And long story short, I've just decided like, okay, I can't throw it away, but at the same time, I don't want to use it as a crutch. So I can grow, but yeah.
This actually comes from a deeper issue for me, a deeper question for me, which I hope one day that I will be able to get like 2 or 3 comedians and to like do a podcast on this particular topic. It's the question of objectivity and subjectivity in comedy. Because at the end of the day, every single person who you would talk to would tell you that humor is subjective, that people like different style of humor, and it doesn't matter to you as a comedian what kind of humor you're using. The most important thing is to make people laugh. If you do that, nobody can tell you anything. Nobody can touch you. On the other hand, there are a lot of examples between even professional comedians and professional circles of comedians, who basically shame other comedians for being one-dimensional and for pulling out, for using one particular card. There is... I know for a fact there is one comedian, Dan something, don't remember his name, and he's pretty successful in terms of like getting corporate gigs and getting like shit tons of money for his shows, but almost the entire comedy world hates this guy because not only he shows off and he sends them personal emails telling them, oh, you're a fucking loser traveling from town to town earning like hundreds.
He sends
bucks.
them.
He sends them.
Well, it sounds like he's a dick.
I'll show you. I'll send you like the video of like there is a compilation of comedians talking about how they refused to work with this guy, and then he would send them like basically spam emails telling them, oh, I'm just got a corporate gig for $6,000 or something like that.
Well,
you're like a
he's
sucker.
A prick.
And so they trash this guy and they shame him because the only type of humor that he's using is ethnical humor. He's Indian, and his entire comedy is about stereotypical ethnical Indian humor.
Right.
And I can understand that, it's basically, it's the same as if in Russia, a foreigner would come on stage and would just for 30 minutes would just say some Russian words with funny foreign accent. It's basically the same thing. And to me, personally, I have this, I understand with my brain that comedy is subjective, but I still believe that there is some objectivity in comedy as well.
Right.
I believe that there is some objectivity, that there is an objective meaning and structure to the phenomenon that is joke. That is a joke.
Oh, there is. Yeah, there is.
In my opinion, there is an objective case of a joke, something that you can objectively call a joke and something that you cannot call a joke.
Sure.
In my opinion, that's something that I want to debate on one
Absolutely.
day.
I love this topic. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, so comedy is subjective and it's also, it's both. As far as I'm concerned. So what is the formula for a joke? It's the setup of the setup is the setup of an expectation, and then the punchline is the delivery of that expectation in an unexpected way. That's what it is. This is my theory. This is just my sort of, I've thought a lot about this. So let's take a bare bones one-liner joke. Let's take like Anthony Jeselnik. I think he's one of the best one-liners out there.
Yeah.
So let's just take one. Oh, okay. So I love this one where he's like, I live with my brother. I caught him masturbating the other day. I said, he goes, shut the door. I said, get inside. right? So it's like, okay, so let's break that down. He's like, I caught my brother masturbating. He goes, shut the door. So you're setting up an expectation. He's masturbating somewhere in the house. The delivery of but then the delivery of the expectation, get inside. He's masturbating on the front lawn, right? So he's giving us, he's setting up an expectation for us, and we're like, okay, like we think we know where this is going, and then there's an unexpected. He's masturbating at his house, but outside. We weren't expecting that. That's why we're laughing. Now that's a joke at its bare bones minimum. Of course, not everybody's doing one-liners. Some people are doing character monologues. Some people are telling stories. But it's still the same general structure. It's still the setup of an expectation, delivered in an unexpected way. And by the way, so I saw you last night, and I've noticed that, speaking of range and doing different things, I've noticed you're kind of doing like you're kind of closer to one-liners now. It's kind of like misdirection what you were doing last night.
I am, yeah, but I've been doing this for the past 6 months.
Okay, I haven't seen you perform much.
Yeah, I know, yeah, because we rarely cross paths.
Right.
But
more and more we are. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
So I've been doing this for the past 6 months for one particular reason, is because Abed, actually, I have Abed to thank for that.
Sure.
Because I workshop my material with him a lot, and there is one idea that he kept putting inside of my head, which I realized that, he's right. How can I improve? More as a comedian. Like, the less time between the punchlines you have, the better. And that's what I'm trying to do. You know, like if I have a long joke, and I do have some long bits, like a minute or 2 minute bit, there has to be a small punchline every 10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. And I was at one time obsessed with writing one-liner. I'm very bad at writing one-liners.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I can. I'm just not interested.
Yeah, exactly. But I was at one time obsessed because this is what you mentioned before, is that how you can get some kind of trust credit from the audience to make sure that they are interested in you the first 10 to 15 seconds. How can you do that? One-liner.
Right.
Get on stage, say a quick joke, make them realize that, this is funny.
He's funny. Yeah.
I think I can listen to him for the next minute.
I'm signed up. Yeah.
And this is exactly what I was obsessed with. I was like, I need to write one-liners to open the my sets. To make people interested in me. And that's what I've done then, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. Whenever I have an idea of a bit, which I realize will be like a minute or 2 minutes long, I'm like, okay, so I go through the story, and then I'm like, how can I make it funny? And then I would think like, okay, 15-second mark here, I need to say something, to say something funny, something like this. It can be easily done. For example, like yesterday, I had a bit about my wife.
Yeah.
And like in
Very
the
funny, by the way.
thank you. In the middle of this bit, I go like, I love my wife. According to her, like that was a quick joke. That was a quick joke. It's a very easy joke.
Right.
Everyone can come up with this. But that was a very quick joke, which I thought that I need to put it here because there is a like 30-second pause. Because right now I'm in the middle of it was the middle of a setup, and I realized that it just took 25 seconds for a setup. I need to say something funny, in the middle of this. So I put this short, little punchy joke in there just to keep people's attention.
Sure, yeah.
Because I think you know it, and I know it. Everyone knows it because at one point, all of us, we were doing like very long 2 minute monologues.
Yeah.
And we thought that the punchline at the end is so good, it's so worth it.
It's gonna make it worth it, yeah.
But it's not worth it,
Right.
Yeah, and you realize how easy it is to lose the audience.
Yeah, sure.
If you're keep being annoying with your monotone delivery or something like this, even if you're not even if you act this out, you can lose them.
Right.
The audience wants to be entertained. How? By laughing.
Right.
And how can you make them laugh? jokes.
Right.
That's it. Yeah,
Right.
that's my idea of that.
Sure.
That's why I'm trying to do this right now.
No, you're right. You're right. But now again, I was just play devil's advocate or whatnot. Now here's the subjective side of it. So you didn't just do one-liners. I remember you used to have a different style, which was very funny, by the way, where you were doing character monologues and you were doing it in a surreal way. There was no misdirection there like you were doing last night. So, for example, I won't spoil the bit, but your bit about the porn star who won the award for best blowjob.
Yeah.
And then you were playing the character of the porn star that won the best blow, her acceptance speech. And so that's just you telling a story, or you're doing a monologue of a character, and it's so surreal and absurd that we're laughing the whole time. There's not really punchlines in there. So much is just like you're just painting a picture for us that's so crazy and asinine and absurd that we're laughing, the whole time. Yeah. And so that's another form of comedy. Comedy isn't just one thing. It's not just misdirection. So that's the subjective side. If you want to measure it objectively, how do you measure it? Well, LPMs, as we say, laughs per minute. Yeah. So if you want to make it objective, well, who's the best? Who has the most laughs per minute? Do you know which comedian, by the way, has the most laughs per minute on record? Holds the record for most laughs per minute?
Look, I don't know. I can only speculate. Sure. From my point. I mean, there is one guy who I've just. I've been following him for a long time and stealing jokes from him at one point. Mark Normand. Okay. That guy is a freaking machine.
Right.
Like joke every 10 seconds or something like this.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carr comes to mind.
Sure,
also, but I don't know the answer.
Right. Well, according to what I've read, the record holder for the most laughs per minute is Phyllis Diller. Do you know who that is?
Delirious?
Phyllis Diller. She's dead now. She died in 2012. She was a comedian she was famous in the 60s, 70s.
Oh, okay.
She holds the record for the most laughs per minute. Yes.
The first time I even hear this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I heard the name, but I didn't really know much about her, but I found out that. So I think that proves that, okay, if you need a metric to measure how good is a comedian, the only thing you really have is laughs per minute. But it's like that. It's like this quote from another old comedian, Milton Berle, that I came across recently, which is, he makes the distinction between a comic and a comedian, that a comic says funny things and a comedian says things funny. So there is also that, what makes people laugh is not just a misdirection. It can also be the theater of it. The irony that's written in the performer's face or their tone of voice. I mean, I've only seen him perform once, but Mumsy, doesn't he do like a lot of physical comedy?
He does a lot of physical comedy. The other very good acquaintance of ours that does that as well is David Munoz.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. I saw him 2 weeks ago.
Physical comedy. And that also catches your attention. The acting out is also very important. Yeah. If you decide to follow that path, nothing wrong with that, but you have to be, again, on point with.
Yeah, no, you do.
All of that.
I maintain the basic structure still has to be there, whether you're doing one-liners or character monologues or physical comedy. There still has to be the setup of an expectation and delivered in an unexpected way. So your bit about the porn star, you're still setting up an expectation like she wants, and then you're constantly through your character monologue, you're constantly delivering. You're constantly keeping us, shaking us, like, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. And so that's still comedy. And the other thing too is that I think there's such a thing as doing too many punchlines in a setup, where it's just imagine you have the main setup, and then you've got a bunch of punchlines in between before the main punchline. You can confuse people. You can have too many punchlines in there and they forgot about the original premise. I mean, I've seen that before too, where there's like tag, big punchline. But at that point they had already they've been just sort of overstimulated, and they've forgotten the original setup.
It could be true.
Yeah.
It could be true. Yeah, but in comedy, I believe that it's the comedian's job to make sure this doesn't happen. I mean,
Right.
if you are fooling, okay. So if you are telling a very long story and you add a lot of punchlines in between, the main plot of the story, so to speak, if people lose the sense of your story somewhere towards the end and the ending doesn't work, that's your job to make sure that even with those punchlines, it works.
Sure.
How you can do that? Performing. That's it.
Well, no, that's it.
Yeah, performing.
And the last thing, and I'm sure, the last point that I can think of, and I'm sure you would agree from experience, is this is again an argument for the subjective side, which is you can do one bit that you can do the exact same bit, word for word, delivery exactly the same. You can do that and kill in front of one crowd. You could do the exact same bit, and that crowd just isn't digging it.
That one I knew. I know. Yeah, like I've mentioned before in previous episodes. Before the Last Comic Standing tournament that Still the Show held earlier, last year already. Yeah, it's already last year.
Right.
I went to Jim and Jack's because I wanted to test out my older material, because I thought that, I remember I had some very good jokes. I need to go there, but it didn't work. Nothing worked.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Exactly. So that's the other thing. So, what people will find funny is obviously dependent upon their culture, their upbringing, their sensibilities, their personality, and every audience is different.
And since we talk about the audience and how different they can be, you have this experience, as far as I know, you couple of years ago, maybe even a year ago, you performed at a very, let's say, expensive place. What was
H2?
H2, yeah. You performed at H2, which doesn't have actually a normal type of audience for comedy. This is the more expensive place for wealthier people.
Yes.
And the audience, of course, was
people dress differently, much differently there than Jim and Jack.
Yeah. So since we're talking about different crowds, how was that crowd for you? Because you did it several times.
Yeah, we had there was a small stretch of time where it was the comedy speakeasy. It was a different open mic. Yeah. Definitely, people are there like wearing blazers and stuff like that. So it's definitely a different sensibilities. You definitely I would definitely have to fine tune the delivery differently, or change the wording differently, because it's not a rowdy Jim and Jack's crowd or what have you. These are, like you said, they're upper middle class professionals, and and it's just it's also the atmosphere. That's another thing too. The atmosphere is also contingent upon how the audience is going to receive, or how successful you're going to be, how the audience is going to receive, how you do the exact same set, word for word, everything the same in one place and another. So these are all the contingencies. This is why comedy, it is objective in as much as, I believe anyway, the structure that I laid out, but it's also subjective as in there's so many variables that you can't control. You can't control every variable, Sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. All you can do is control what you can and, be on game. Yeah. But that doesn't guarantee that you're going to kill.
Yeah, true. One more thing, I want actually to backtrack a little bit. Yeah. When we talked about the physical comedy, the physical aspect is, of course, also very important. We talked about this before with Abed, for example, on some very basic things that you probably should do on stage. Like, for example, remove the fucking mic stand from the middle of the stage when you get there.
Right. Unless you're gonna stand with the mic.
Yeah,
Some people do that, but
and so something like this, like, for example, do not stand in the far right corner of the stage all the time.
That's good. That's a good one. Yeah. There are some golden laws. Yes, that can't be broken. Yeah.
How aware are you of your physical movement on stage when you go there? Yeah. And do you have any particular plan in your head of how to move on stage? Like, because at some situations, yeah, when you're like, oh, I better do this or I better do that. Do you have something like this?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, I know that you shouldn't stand in the corner of the stage. Obviously, it's interesting. You know, like fairly recently, I got sober. So one of the thank you. No, it's not for applause. But one of the things I've noticed, maybe you've noticed that I'm sitting more now.
Yeah.
And that's just because I'm readjusting and I'm a little fidgety. So I'm sitting so that I can at least kind of not fidget, basically. And so that's one thing. And I think it's just sort of I don't really think about it too much. Otherwise, I stand with my feet shoulder width apart, so I look maybe more statuesque. I always look at it like it's a fight, like it's a boxing match, and you got to stand ready. I actually think that and there's studies to prove this actually, that your body posture will affect your confidence at the moment. So if you're standing, with your feet kind of shoulder width apart, your back is straight, your chin is up, like you're confident, then you'll just naturally be confident. You'll feel more confident. If you're up there and you're sort of like looking at your shoes, kind of like this, like I know people can't see me, but
they can.
Oh yeah, they can. Those people can. Yeah,
on YouTube. Yeah.
On YouTube, the YouTube people can. So if you're with the microphone really close to your and you got your other hand, so it's like almost like you're hugging yourself to comfort yourself, like then you're gonna feel less confident. So. I guess that's a basic rule. I guess that's kind of an unconscious basic rule that I have, is that I'm going to stand there. If I'm going to stand or whatever, I'm going to adopt a posture that's like, yeah, I'm here and I'm supposed to be here. And if you don't like it,
no,
I'm the one with the microphone, Yeah.
I used to stand all the time on stage and to walk around the stage a little bit. But I remember the exact moment when I sat for the first time. When I get there and I went with my bit. Yeah, that was the day when my daughter was born.
Oh, okay.
And Abid came by, and I just kept telling him about how wild the night was, how I took my wife to the hospital, and how I didn't sleep at night. He was listening to me. He was like, you should write a bit about this.
Right.
So that day I wrote a 5-minute bit, which is still one of my best bits I've ever written. And I went to the open mic. That day was the open mic. I went there and I was like, I'm going on stage with this material, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sit. So that was natural for me, because I felt like I'm not here to perform. Back then in my head, I'm here to talk to you. Like I need to spill out something right now.
Yeah.
So for me, sitting, and I do that from time to time, I do that when I want to create the atmosphere that I'm actually not here to be like a quote unquote professional comedian. I want to tell you my story. Sometimes it's not the best approach you can do, depending on the circumstances. Yeah, of course. But this is what I tend to do right now. Yeah, sometimes I would sit on a chair in the middle of the stage, just to create a specific atmosphere, just like I'm trying right now. And this is what I actually kept in my head. If the stage is pretty big, I tend to walk around the stage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. If you got a
stand-up store, for example.
Exactly. Yeah, if you got the space, you should use it, I think. But Steal the Show's stage is quite small, so you gotta kind of
One other thing that I kept keeping in my head for the entire last year, for the year 2020, is that this was my problem. Whenever I would perform, I would usually focus only on one side of the audience.
Oh, okay.
And I would keep this idea in my head, like, look here, turn your head over here, look at someone else,
switch,
something like this. Yeah, something like this. I did that for like 2 months straight. Every single show, I kept this idea in my head till it became natural to me. So right now I would look around at people. So it's okay, because the audience can disconnect from you if you don't give them any physical attention.
Yeah, you got.
as well.
You're talking. You at the end of the day, you are talking to them, right? So you should, show an interest, maybe. Actually, that's another interesting thing I noticed since I got sober is different. Something that's actually good that I noticed is that I'm actually naturally making better eye contact with the audience. So that is important. Or just sometimes, is just staring off vacantly like you're just having a daydream thought. All these things these little stylistic things that are just as important as the text of your joke. That's what makes the art the art. I mean, if you take some of the best bits from, let's say, someone who's how do you dispute whether this person's a legend, like George Carlin? If you took his bits and you just read the transcript of it, you'd be like, that's not funny. But when you see him perform it, it's the facial expression he makes when he's giving the delivery. It's the tone of voice. It's the rhythm, the pause, the pregnant pause, the comedic pause. It's all of these things, and that's why that's why I gravitated towards stand-up comedy away from theater, because it's like the possibilities are endless. The possibilities are endless for how you can present your material.
When you're hosting a show, do you do any do you have any sort of routine preparing for the start of the show?
Yeah.
Like maybe looking at what kind of people are sitting,
Right.
maybe coming up with some topics that you want to talk to people about. Do you have something like this?
It's a lot harder to prepare to host a show, obviously, than it is, especially if you're doing a set, you can watch the host, get a feel for the crowd. But if you're the host, you got to get the feel for the crowd. That's your job, right? So, what I will do is try to be in the room and kind of try to people watch, see who's coming in, who's with who's drinking, who's not drinking, who's to try that's like the best preparation I think you can do. And I have feelers that I put out right off the bat that I use every single show, just as a feeler to see, like, okay, are they energetic? Are they reserved? And after that, you do kind of just have to feel your way through it. Like you gotta just improvise at times. It's just the way it is. That's why I liken it to a fight. I mean, my background is in martial arts, so you train and you train and you train and you have your techniques and everything like that. You're training, everything's muscle memory training. But when you're actually in the ring or the cage or whatever the case may be, you have to adapt. You're not performing against a robot. You're performing against someone,
with a brain,
yeah, who's trying to trick you too. So you gotta stay one step ahead. So you gotta stay one step ahead of the audience, and that's basically it. Yeah.
Well, that's been a very interesting conversation. Thank you very much.
My brain is stimulated, man. This was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we wrap things up, I wanted to touch the topic that we touched briefly at the beginning. Yeah. Jim and Jax.
Yes.
Because I already basically sang the eulogy for Jim and Jax.
Me too.
At the end of last year.
Yeah.
But because for those of you who don't know, Jim and Jax is basically the place where English comedy started back in 2015 in Moscow. And it's been operating for like 5 years. And at the end of 2020, we got hit with the news that probably some financial issues forced the place to shut down.
Yeah.
But it resurrected sooner than we expected.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you were really celebrating all the New Year holidays in Russia for those 10 days, you would be like, did it close?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Something like this. So if you can, because I know that you helped out the guys to kind of refurnish the place and so on and so forth. Yeah. Can you give me some inside information of what happened and how it got resurrected?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know all the details, but what I understand is Dustin, Dustin, a sort of a staple of Jim and Jack's culture, not in the comedy scene, but anyway, as I understand, he sort of stepped up and kind of partnered with the original owner. So, and he's kind of the acting manager now. So he was the one spearheading the whole thing. He was the one who was in charge of the renovations that were the minor renovations that we did. And I'm hopeful actually, because he's really a hands-on kind of guy. He's got a vision, and he's got a really, trust me, no nonsense attitude when it comes to how things operate. He's got a vision, and he expects everybody to pull in that direction, including me, being in charge of the comedy show. He supports comedy. He really wants the show to gain life. But he expects it to be done in a certain way. And I actually appreciate that. I appreciate that it's for the first time in a long time that management at Jim and Jack's is taking an active interest in the show rather than, whatever, do your thing, whatever. I mean, that's good in one way, but in another way, it's kind of like, you're a ship at sea, lost at sea. But that's why going forward, and once these restrictions on the time disappears, I'm hopeful that we'll sort of see a resurgence, a return to the glory days, as it were.
Great.
Yeah.
So, and I guess since we talked about Jim and Jack's, we can do a little plug that Jim and Jack's holding stand-up comedy events every week, every Saturday in the evenings. The time, as I understand, fluctuates a little bit.
It fluctuates. So at the moment, because of the restrictions, it's right now it's a bit earlier. It's 7:30 to 9:30. Hopefully, when things go back to normal, it'll be a bit later. But for now, it's 7:30 to 9.
So 7:30 p.m. every Saturday, Jim and Jack's. If you want to perform, because it's an open mic, anyone can perform. Hit Adrian up on Facebook or any other social media you'll find him at, or come to him before the show and tell him, "Hey, man, I want to perform," and I think that he will be more than happy to give you time on stage.
Simple as that. Yep.
All right, man. So thank you very much once again for doing this.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think we'll definitely do this again, because there are a lot of other things.
There's so many things to talk about. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. But for now, thanks again, man.
All right.
Good luck with the show tonight.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and for those of you who are watching or listening, take care, guys. We'll be back next week with a new episode.
Arrivederci. Ciao, ciao.